Alright, so hello everybody. Oh, just teach you how. My name is William. And now today I'm going to talk about the Age Appropriate Design Code Act. Yes. Now this bill did got signed by Gavin Newsom back in September of 2022. And as you can see right here, you can read this to yourself right here. I'm not going to read all because it will just take too long for me to read, but I'll let you read it right here if you want to. Now I don't like this law at all. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't know why nobody has told me about this law that got signed back in 2022, but it is the law. But it is a law that yeah. This was before the Digital Age Assurance Act got signed into law. Yeah. The Digital Age Assurance Act was age as a station on device setup. This is an age. This bill, this law, the Design Code Act is an age appropriate law. So what is it? Well, so before California had the idea of age as a station on device setup, they had this law called the Age Appropriate Design Code Act. So this was before AB 2043. This bill was called AB 2273. Now what is it? I'll show you right here. So the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act, which is AB 2273, it got signed into law back in September 2022 and mandates online services likely to be users under 18 prioritize their privacy, safety, well-being over commercial. Okay, it's modeled after the UK's Age Appropriate Design Code. After the law, businesses conduct data protection. Is this privacy setting highest level of the harmful perfecting of privacy? Okay, so while the law initially did took effect on July 1st, 2024, the enforcement was shaped by Ninth Circuit, ruling by NetChoice versus Bonta on March 2026. The court was issued mixed ruling, like deteriorate well-being of conducive to uphold requirements, institution of holding law skip amendment review. So, and we can talk about it here on Google as well. Here, Google has it right here. So, the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act is a landmark law requiring businesses to protect privacy. Okay, safety of the children under the 18. Okay, that's what it says. But while initially legal challenges, the U.S. Ninth Circuit appeals to the privacy of the court. Okay, and then so your code requirements. The additional products of service likely accessed by minors. The law requires you to, so default privacy, it says privacy settings to highest level by default. Okay, it says age assurance, so it's kind of like, some kind of age verification. It says estimate users' ages by reasonable certainly apply the children's privacy protections to all users. That's what it's about, And then child friendly language, provide friendly information, provide privacy information terms, policy that are permit of easy for children to understand. I don't like this. No, because you're trafficking, disabled or prohibiting of default unless their reason it must be displayed. Instead, it's the only Ninth Circuit of this law, of this assigned features because those laws, the submutation was struck by doubts the constitutional link of the district court. Now, a visual text of the situation regarding it was in efforts. Now, so that was that bill, the California Age Design Code, the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act. Now, I want to talk about this one because this was before the Digital Age Assurance Act got signed into law. Okay? Because I don't like this bill at all. and I do want to talk about this. So before I can get on to Steve Hilton, because this is why. So let's read about this. The lecture on frontier validation found the Ninth Circuit rule of the California's 8-point design code violates the First Amendment. Yeah, it does. That's what I don't like about this law. I don't know why. And now, nobody has been told me about this law. I just heard about it right now. The problem is that, and this was a law that got signed before the Digital Age Assurance Act got signed. So, yes, California has been thinking about age verification even before that. So that's why. So yeah, while it's not casting doubt of the written privacy laws, okay, in this case, okay, it says EFFL in the brief, in this case, NetChoice versus Bonta, along with the Center for Democracy and Technology. So a lower court already had ruled the law, and it is like unconstitutional, EFF agrees, but as appeals out of the narrow path, EFF argued the ETC's age estimation scheme vague terms are described over as harmful content and rendered the entire law unconstitutional. But the court also had incorrectly just deemed that pedestrian consumer privacy principles could not pass the First Amendment consistency. This is a mistake that EFF asked the Ninth Circuit to fix. In late 2022, California has passed the AADC, which is Age the Appropriate Design Code Act. Yeah. The goal of protecting children online is the data privacy provisions of the EFF. What do you see in the comprehensive federal privacy bill? The data minimization strong limits on the processing of the geolocation data, regulation dark patterns, the enforcement of the privacy policies. Now, the government should provide privacy protections to all people. The protections of AADC, however, the only guarantee for children and not offer those protections to children but not adults. Technology, our companies are strongly emphasize estimate the age, the entire user base, the children and adults alike. While the method is not simplified, the techniques include submitting a government ID or biometric scan of your face. Oh, so it's a selfie. Great. Okay, so it's taking a selfie. Oh, that's not good. In addition, the technology companies require access to their projects to determine if they design to expose children undefined harmful content and determine what is undefined the best interest for children. Okay, and it's best to argue with the ADC's age attestation scheme because it raises the same problems the other ageification laws have been most universally struck down. With help of the EFF, the AADC burns adults and children's access to protected speech, petitions all users' right to speak anonymous online. In addition, the EFF argued the vague terms determines no clear standards and thus gives government officials to discretion in deciding the conduct forbidden of the saving platforms of the same sensor scrutiny about what is allowed. And many internet users are required to provide personal information necessary to verify their ages, because there is doubts regarding the security of the services. Regarding threat identified as fraud, EFF wrote. Now, because age administration is essential on the AADC, the entire laws should be struck down by that reason alone, without assessing privacy provisions. EFF accepts the court to the narrow path. If the court instead chooses to address the AADC's privacy protection, the EFF cautioned the main principles reflected of these positions. When the strike to judicial censorship provisions, the vague terms could survive and demand integrity. The EFF wrote. So this court should follow the approach of district follow. The narrowly core of California in blocking minors from harmful content, the government has been opted to several essential interests. And as here, it's just protection for information privacy. But it's also protection of the free expression, the information integrity, equal opportunity, the elimination of deceptive commercial speech, and the privacy principles from uninformed AADC's consumer data privacy. The provisions are narrowly tailored of these interests. So the EFF has a long history supporting well-written privacy laws against the First Amendment attacks. The AADC is not one of them. The field briefs is supporting laws of field reading history by the way of other official records. The view that aggregate for a federal law protective health records, and we have written extensively for a need for a strong federal privacy law. Okay, so that's it. That was in 2024. Okay, and now let's read about this one. So the court tried privacy law, not an online censorship law. Okay. So in the victory of free speech and privacy, the federal applying confirmed the last week of the parts of the California Age-Appropriate Design Code Act, likely to violate the First Amendment and the parts of the further according to the lower court. The U.S. appeals the Ninth Circuit currently reject the rules requiring businesses to opine whether than also harmful children, harmful to children, and then the migrate of such harms. The EFF, DSC, the CET, and the CDT field of the court brief, and it's the case easier this year arguing for this point. The court also provided helpful roadmap to the legislators how to write privacy first laws that could survive conditional challenges. However, the court missed the opportunity to strike down the Act's age-vacation provision while they continue to argue. In this case to others, this provision violates the First Amendment rights of children and adults. So the Act rulings of the amicus brief. In 2022, the California enacted its Age-Appropriate Design Code Act, the AADC. Three of the law's provisions, the crucial understanding of this court ruling. So number one, the Act requires online business to write a data protection impact assessment for each features that children are likely to access. It must also address whether appropriate features design could, among other things, expose the children to harmful and potentially harmful content, and the business must create a plan to migrate that risk. Number two, the Act requires businesses to follow data privacy rules specific to children. This includes data minimization and limits on processing precise geolocation of data. The Act requires the businesses to estimate the age of child users, the instant of the decision of to the risk assigning of processing of business data, or to apply data privacy rules to all consumers. In 2023, the Federal District Court blocked the law ruling like that violates the First Amendment. The state appealed. EFS brief is supporting the jurisdiction of the court, ruling that the Act's age verification provision, a vague, harmful standard, are conditional that the police provisions cannot be severed from the rest of the Act. Thus, that the entire Act should be struck down. While initially argued, if the court rejected initial survivability argument, privacy privileges in the Act could survive, reduce additional security, apply to such laws, and still safeguard people's personal information. Especially true given of the government's many additional interests of the protection data privacy. The Ninth Circuit affirmed the primacy of jurisdiction of the X impact assessment provisions, explaining of that violates the First Amendment on their face. The appeals court vacated the permanent injunction as the its provisions. The reasoning the lower court not apply the correct legal test. The appeals court set back the lower court to do so. Okay, so the good news: no online censorship. The Ninth Circuit decision of the enforcement of the AADC's impact access to the First Amendment grounds is a victory. Uses all ages because it ensures everyone that can continue as a lawful speech online. The AADC's central provisions would require diverse array of online services, for social media to news sites, to review the content of the sites, and to consider whether children may view or receive harmful information. The EFF argued that this is provision to impose content and base restrictions on what speech services can host online. It was so vague, and they could reach lawful speech, and this is upsetting to including news and current events. The Ninth Circuit agreed that EFF and the AADC is harmful to minors. Standard was vague, and it was violated the First Amendment for several reasons, including because the basis of businesses of serving of censors for the state. The court ruled these AADC's censorship provisions, while the subject to the highest form of the First Amendment security, because they restrict the content online. And EF argued the court that rejected California's argument that the provisions should be rejected of security under the First Amendment because they sought the commercial transactions. And there should be no doubt that the speech of the counter online, while cover business and subject of commercial speech, the court wrote. Now finally, court ruled that AADC's censorship provisions likely failed under the First Amendment because they're narrowly tailored, and California says speech of restricted ways protect children online. Now, the EFS piece of the court's AADC's impact assessment requires for the speech provisions are this is provisions primarily enjoy everyone that continue access to lawful speech online. Now, more good news: a roadmap of privacy first laws. The appeals of court did not rule whether the Act state appropriate provisions that could preside the First Amendment review. Instead, the directly lower court first instance applied the correct test. In doing so, the appeals the court provided guideposts on how legislators can write data privacy laws to survive the First Amendment review. The spoiler alert: enact the privacy first law without the lawful censorship provisions. The dark patterns. So some privacy laws prevent user interfaces, some intent of the substantial effect of autonomy and anonymity and choice. The appeals the court revised the preliminary injection against the Act's dark patterns provision because it's under the clear whether dark patterns and protected speech, and if so, what level of scrutiny they would face. Okay, clarity. Some privacy laws will require businesses to use clear language in their published privacy policies. The appeals court reversed the permitted injection of the X privacy provision because there wasn't enough evidence to see whether the provision would violate the First Amendment. Indeed, many publications would involve conventional, non-controversial speech, and that would survive. Okay, that could survive the review. Transparency. Some privacy laws will require businesses to disclose information about their data, provisions, practices, and injection of X assessment. The appeals to the court, the acknowledgement of the Confident Consumer Privacy Acts. Unproblematic requirement. The Archphobia promises annually. Okay. Report. Okay. Metrics. Okay. Consumer sites. Okay. Access court to delete their data. Likewise, the court. Okay. Reserve judgment and conditionality of the two. Have extra more limited of the reporting requirements, which do not require businesses to opine whether the third party design. Okay. That conduct design harm. Is harmful to children. Now, social media. Many privacy laws apply to social media companies, while the EFF is second to none in defending the First Amendment right of moderate content. We nonetheless welcome the appeals of court of rejection lower courts speculation. Now, I hear the X privacy provisions. They would normally curtail the decisions of each social media companies. Some the right to create negations of privacy laws might resolve as applied claims of the specific contents instead of their face. So that would be taking a selfie. 9-second parts of the WADC's age provision. The appellate of the court left open in the important issue of the trial court of the take-up, where the WADC's age provision violates the First Amendment. Right to adults and right of adults and children by blocking the lawful speech, frustrating. Their ability to remain anonymous online, the chilling of their speech to avoid danger of losing their online privacy. The EFF also argued the Ninth Circuit briefs of the ADC's age provision was similar to many other laws that courts repeatedly found that violate the First Amendment. The Ninth Circuit missed the group between to confirm the WADC's age provision that violated the First Amendment. The court didn't pass the judgment on the provision, but rather ruled the district court failed to accurately assesses the provision to determine whether they violate the First Amendment on its face. The MS brief argued the ADC's age provision, Prognatius, because it restricts everyone's access lawful speech online by requiring adults to show proof that are old enough to access lawful content, and the agency's deems harmful. We look forward to the district of the recognizing conditional flows of DC's age provision once on the issue is back before it. Okay, so that was about the Age Appropriate Design Code Act. Now, what was this law? So it's some kind of age bill. Yeah, right now this law is initially blocked by legal challenges. But since Ninth Circuit Court of the Rule of 2006, for safety provisions can go to effect. Okay, so now let me tell you something. I don't like this law either. I also hate this law too, because, and nobody has been telling me about this law. Nobody. So the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act, I don't like this law either. This just tells me that But California has been talked about. Has been proposing age verification laws since before COVID. Well, probably right after COVID or something like that. Or probably right after COVID or something like that. I don't like it. And it makes me angry. For this to happen. And nobody has told me about it. So, yeah, the age appropriate design code act. I'm glad this. So, I would say I don't like this law. I believe this law needs to get repealed. That's my answer about it. And same thing with AB 1043 as well. I know, same thing with AB 1043 as well. The Digital Age Assurance Act that was age as a station on the device setup. I know. I don't like these. Oh. Well, they both have to get. So this says age repeat. It says right here, an age. Okay, it says right here, any appeal of the civil code of the consumer privacy. So I think this law needs to get repealed. What we need to do is don't worry, you can still fight these laws. It's all over the world right now. I just talk about the ones in California because that's where I live anyway. But I don't like them at all, and this is why. How are we going to stop them? The best you can do is call our representatives, we need to call our assembly members and our senators, right? Now, I know that, now I already know about the KIDS Act, got passed the House, but we need to call our senators so that we can stop it from passing the Senate, the KIDS Act. I'll get to that. And we've already talked about the KIDS Act, so I don't want to get into any more of it. That's why. So. Now, people ask me about Steve Hilton. Now, people have been telling me about Steve Hilton's wife. So people have been asking Steve Hilton, where is his wife? Well, first of all, and why did Steve Hilton not make her wife an American citizen yet? Well, I don't know why, and this is something we need to talk about, yes. But alright, so Steve Hilton's wife, Rachel Redstone, lives with him in Atherton, California. The couple of the Silicon Valley, moving from the UK in 2012. Their home in Atherton, estimated as to worth more than $18 million. In 2002, Redstone, the local plan loosened zoning code to permit multi-family housing near the estate. Okay, so right here, so the public consumer of Steve Hilton's wife, Rachel Redstone, residing in Atherton, California, located in Silicon Valley. The couple have moved to the area in 2012, And when let's don't talk of the permit of the role is each and take companies of Google, Uber, and Netflix. So Rachel Wattstone, okay, that's the name of Steve Hilton's wife. Okay. So you're saying there's no proof that Rachel Wattstone is an American citizen? Well, is she an American citizen? Because if she isn't, is Rachel a U.S. citizen? Because people tell me that she isn't. Well, I don't know. Is that true? Okay, so the search is so the search is going to confirm. So Steve Hilton, okay, so Rachel Wattstone and his husband, okay, it became so Steve Hilton became a citizen in 2021. Now it's 2025. Well, Sydney Mid-South 60 as a business in 2026. Besides, okay, and it says it remains a state of the available records. Okay, so there's no confirmation. So yeah, you could probably believe that Rachel Wattstone, which is Steve Hilton's wife, is not really an American citizen right now. But the problem is that Steve Hilton should make Rachel Wattstone an American citizen. He should. The problem is he isn't. That's the problem. So, now, well, here. So, and he asked me if Steve Hilton's children are American citizens. Well, that's... Right here, yes. Steve children are American citizens. Okay. We do some movie value in 2012. And then just naturalized U.S. citizen in 2021. Okay, yeah. So Steve Hilton's children American citizens. Okay, the cover conference says Steve Hilton and his wife. Okay, Rachel Wattstone have two children, but saved by their two sons living out in California. While Hunter became president in 2021. The family reinstated in California since 2012, and did not reinstate a citizenship status of their children. So to me, they probably are American citizens, but there's probably, I don't know if there's any proof of that yet. So you can let me know in the comments below. But I don't know why you've been asking Steve Hilton that, first of all. And you try to tell me about Steve Hilton's wife and their children. I don't even know much about this. So, yeah. So you're asking, so why is Steve Hilton hiding his wife and children? You might be asking, right? Well, and why do you think that MAGA, whereas that's for Make America Again, can be a death toll for California? Well, first of all, no. California voting blue, having Gavin Newsom, and then after that now Xavier Becerra, that has been having a voting blue already made a death toll for California. Okay? Not voting red. Okay? Voting, you know, look, see? If we keep voting blue, I'll go to, the problem is that if we keep voting blue, we're gonna get the same result, and that's why. And I mean to talk about Steve Hilton's opponent. Yeah, this guy. Xavier Becerra. Or, okay. Because I want to know why. I want to tell you why. That this guy. I want to tell you why this guy is much worse than Steve Hilton. Okay, so right here, Xavier Becerra, or you can also come, yeah. It has been stated that the company that migrant children released as sponsor not has lost legal custody of these students, although federal data is reporting since 85,000 children became uncomfortable, untakeable for the phone between 2021 and 2003. Service is the HHS secretary. Including Republican lawmakers and some Democrats argue the many of the country is being lost. Some states understood of the 300,000 children marked as basic sponsor of Biden administration. The somewhere about the children have been unknown, attracting failures of agents online. Journal of the New York Times. Mr. Children of the invalid address of including censorship of the driving site in a Texas apartment. While over 65,000 reports of the concern, trafficking and fraud went addressing during Becerra's leadership. Becerra defends his record, asserting his government lacks authority to track children and release of the federal sponsors, blaming the issue of sponsors spilling the Ebola rather than physically disappearing. However, the interim minors from 2021 pressure of the users on the assembly line possess of protocols and audio suggests saying encourage staff to increase speed of the discharges. So I'm trying to show you right now. Steve Hilton's opponent, you know this guy, Javier or Xavier Becerra, he's much worse than Steve Hilton. Okay, if this guy gets elected, I don't know what he's going to do. I believe he's like Newsom. He's very similar to Newsom. He's going to make, he will make more disasters and more disaster for California. And yeah, he will have and yes, he will have full support of the California social media ban. And he will have full support of the Stop Next Children Act and all that. And he will have full support of the 3D printer censorship. And he will have full support of the Digital Age Assurance Act. You know, the age attestation of device setup. Yes, that law too. So, why do some people want this guy to win? You know, when this guy is way, way worse than Steve Hilton. Yeah, this guy is way worse than Steve Hilton. Why do you want this guy to get elected? Come on. Now, as Secretary of Human Services, HHS, Xavier oversaw the Office of Regional Settlement, which was responsible for housing and the sponsors of migrant children federal agencies. Since 1,000 these minors of sponsors that deserve criticism. The committee Vanish investigates major breakdowns of businesses, according to the New York Times. Becerra British to move to other countries to move quickly of the six workers back on the contact of the children of released of some children placed under legal neighbor. Now, I did by the judge's office. I'm expected to go further, arguing that numerous cases of obesity adults, with this age, witness checks. But Sarah maintained administration will protect kids and its being players, but lawmakers want us to continue on committing against vulnerable minors. So that's just, but this is what, so this is, I'm trying to tell you here. He is, so this guy, he wasn't a very good HHS secretary, and he's not going to be a very good governor either. He's going to be doing a lot worse for California, a lot worse than what Steve Hilton will do, and this is not, and this is just, so, to me, I prefer voting for Steve Hilton than this guy, which is much worse than California. We're just doing this guy much worse than California. This Democrat, Xavier Becerra. I know, I'm exposing this guy. So, do you think I'm stupid for voting for Steve Hilton? Come on. I think the Democrats are stupid. They're voting for this guy. That is much worse than Steve Hilton. And, I'm trying to... That's much worse than Steve Hilton. And this is just, because this guy, except for Sarah, he wants more taxes in California. That's not good. You see? And that's not good. And he would have full support of the age vacation laws in California. That's not good either. So, but I would say the best thing to do is not to vote for this guy, and please vote for Steve Hilton if you can. But I would say it's up to you, though. Right here is the where you can here. Next week they call for gold again. So you can read about this part here if you want to. I'm not gonna read it, but yeah. But yeah, Steve Hilton does have good things that he wants to do for California, that's why. I know he doesn't. Yes, I know he likes MAGA. He is endorsed by Donald Trump, but but he's a lot better candidate for governor than this guy. The Democrats are electing. That's why. So. And I became a Republican to fight against the Democrat machine in California. Okay? If you don't like this, well, I'm all for turning California, a better state. And plus Steve Hilton, this guy here, he wants to work with both Democrats and Republicans alike. He wants to help California. I believe he wants to fix California the best he can. I'm not sure How are you gonna do it though? That's the answer right there. I might have to ask him because you don't know. I don't know much about it, but or something. But if he ever comes to my city I live in, because I live in the city of Ontario. I live in Ontario, California, which is in San Bernardino County. But so to me, I believe folding red is going to be a better idea than just keep folding blue. Keep folding blue is going to give us the same result. Folding red is going to give us a different result for California. And I believe that. That's why. And now, let me do something. Believing that Republicans can't win in California, it's just like the Democrats can't win Texas, and that's what I'm trying to say is. So. So I don't like this at all. The age. So the Age Appropriate Design Code Act, I believe this law needs to get repealed. And hopefully, and will Steve Hilton repeal this law? Well, I would ask him about it if I ever see him, but this law does violate the First and Fourth Amendment, and I don't like it. No. That just tells me that California's been doing age vacation laws before they have an Age Assurance Act, and I didn't even fight for it, and that's the problem. And not only that, what about and here it is. So another thing that happened is, well, okay, so I got blocked. What I want to show you is, so the Kids Act, there's another, so yeah, I want to show you something. So the Kids Act has passed the House of Representatives, which is also not good. So you probably have to call your senators to stop this bill. They call it the Kids Act. It's called the Kids and Digital Safety Act. You can have. I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's just to combine with a lot of bills like the Kids Online Safety Act and stuff like that. So you have to call your senators to stop this bill from passing the Senate. Because it has to get to pass the Senate. That's why. So it's passed the House, but you have to stop you have to call your Senate so you can stop it eventually. I'll probably call my senators too in California because I try to get a hold of it, but I can't get a hold of them. I'll try to the best I can, but I'll try to get a hold of them if I can. But you need to get a hold of yours too, because if you want to stop this bill called the Kids Act, all right? I'm just telling you about that right now. So, I'll go ahead and. Okay. All right, so right here. So here it is, Reform California. You can help us vote for more things right here, like voter ID, Save Prop 13, all this right here. So if you want to look at the votes, if you want to look for any top news for voting, you can look at here a reform. You can look at Carmel's website, which is reformcalifornia.org. And then, if you want to fight against age-ification bills, you can go to batterybills.com and call representatives here. So, here's all the bills right here you can fight for here. I don't know why the Kids Act is not there, but anyway, you can the best thing to do is go to environmentbills.com and call your representatives here. So, and you can also look for ones that got blocked. Oh, yeah, from NetChoice, which is right here. And you can also look at some of NetChoice as well. So go to. So I would say, if you want to fight against education, just go to betterthanbills.com and tell them you won't vote for them again. If you can tell them that you won't vote for them again if they support age-ification or digital ID. Okay, that's what I meant to say is. So that's the best thing you can do. But and no, I don't like the California's Age-Appropriate Design Code Act. I believe that was a bad bill that got signed back in 2022, and it tells me we did not fight for that bill, and we did not fight against that bill, and we did not fight for the Age Assurance Act either. So we need to, but we can stop. Don't worry. We can. I believe we can still stop them. That's why. I've been learning about these bills. Well, for many people, well, yeah, it's just not good. So, and hopefully, and I believe that Steve Hilton does want to make California better. He makes the word Californiable. So if you want to know this one, the Californiable Tax Plan. You can read about right here. So that's from Steve Hilton. So California is the base platform of this campaign slogan for Steve Hilton, Republican candidate for governor of California, is this tight cost of living. Okay, I pay around $1,000 income of the state taxes. Tips of everybody is a flat. Okay, income of $100, and then code of the Medi-Cal coverage of legal immigrants, and aiming to have achieved the $1 gas increase of administrative housing of immigration requirements. So that's what Steve Hilton wants to do. Yeah, he wants to make California an affordable place to live again, and that's one. And that's what he wants to do exactly. I'm just not sure how he's going to do it exactly because I don't know. You can also tell me in comments below about this anyway. And that's the reason why the best we can do is to vote for him for California governor, instead of his opponent, you know, Xavier Becerra, which is a guy who is a lot worse. So anyway, I think I'll talk about next video is about frauds. Well, I'll talk about the Stop Next Surely Act bill that Republicans are calling it, AB 2624, and also we talk about AB 1608. Well, I'll talk about those two bills next video because those two bills are talking about exposing fraud in California. I'll talk about that next video. So I don't like those two bills either. Well, I'll talk about that next video. Anyway, I have to go right now, but I will. So I'll talk about the Stop Next Surely Act, and also in another bill that's about the fraud, about the high-speed rail project. Well, I'll talk about that next video because I have to go right now. But thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoy it. And I'll see you later. Goodbye. Adios. 再见.